Hi, hi. We are back, and this is Kaleidoscope on Relax Radio. I'm Olivia. Good morning, and I hope you're having a brilliant morning. If not, grab yourself some coffee and let's kickstart your day with some amazing facts and, well, a very mind boggling topic that is not so addressed. So we were talking about prostitution and how it is still in debate of whether it should be legalized or illegalized, right? So let me just start with a couple of opinions that has been given by certain researchers and professionals. Okay, so legalized prostitution cannot exist alongside the true equality of women. They say this. So they say the idea that one group of women should be available for men's sexual access is founded on structural inequality of gender, class, and race. Moreover, it is a violation of international law. In fact, failure to challenge legalized prostitution undermines every human right norm mandating the dignity of the person, equality for all. As Melissa Fale says, decriminalizing or legalizing prostitution would normalize and regulate practices which are human rights violations and which, in any other context, would be legally actionable. Sexual harassment, physical assault, rape, captivity, economic coercion, and emotionally damaging verbal abuse. So, in Sweden, prostitution is officially acknowledged as violence against women and a tool of oppression. Legalization of prostitution means that the state imposes regulations which they can control one class of women as prostituted. Prostitution is not only individual discrimination, it's exploitation or abuse by an individual man, but also is a structure reflecting and maintaining inequality between men and women. Essentially, what they mean by this is they give superiority to men by legalizing prostitution because people who run prostitution allows crime as rape and trafficking and coercion to occur more often, and it requires a devalued class of women. Prostitution is a colonization of women. So legalization gives approval to violence, control, and devaluation. When violence is directed at half the world's population, that is women, it undermines the entire structure of human rights. The Swedish model calls for no arrests of women, no blaming of the victim, no use of the criminal justice system to control women, but appropriate use of the state system to control violence against women. Okay. Now, let me just get straight to the point. Why is prostitution frowned upon? So, most any objection to prostitution derives from two factors. Traditionally, prostitutes knew quite a lot about the men and women they came in contact with, creating a dangerous and often powerful underground of players which many powerful men feared. In ancient societies, prostitution often started out as a well accepted field of work and only slowly was pushed into the underground by those who feared its power most. Secondly, religious organizations feared the power as well, losing traction from churches to concubines, often combined the significant cash flow away from the preacher and to provide up the carnal activity. One shall not forget that with prostitution, other fun activities, fun within inverts, which cost money and had a bigger draw than an hour in a cold assembly while listening to sales pitches, were also demonized. Drinking, dancing, sports, even eating. In short, religions feared the loss of money to more fun activities. This led to a move of the profession into the underground and the associated schizophrenia of often receiving the very same customers who would later that day denounce one's source of income. The third factor plays into this. Though only peripherally, women have traditionally been removed from direct power in societies, equal rights are very recent and even today not assured. Even in so called first world countries, sex, however, and the associated companionship was one way to influence men. And be darned, prostitutes, as we discussed before, use the influence to corrupt men, apparently. A small group of women here use their bodies to provide something that wives and other indirectly invoicing concubines try to keep as scarce as possible in order to create demand and with it power. In other words, if you had a set of diamonds valued at 1 million each, you'd like to work hard to shut anyone down who sold them for $20 a pop. Frankfurt's red light district has at any given time between 2,000 and 4,000 working prostitutes, escorts, and other men and women in the sex industry. Each and every one of these workers is insured, bonded, unionized, and under the same governmental rights and responsibilities as other employees or independent contractors. So, just as members of the medical or hospitality sectors, sex workers are required to undergo health screenings, and can and will be barred from working, with hefty fines and prison attached in the case of negligence or undocumented labor. So you can you just have to know this. Many sex workers consider themselves quite liberated and not at all abused. To quote one of that stuck in my mind is that I'd feel dirty and abused if I had to sell a product I don't believe in or food that makes people fat or sick. Many are offended by the notion of being abused. The right to offer or not offer physical contact, the right to decide if 6 lovers a day or in a lifetime is right, and the freedom to ask for compensation in return is rather holy to them. The few I did a couple of research on in terms of how many more long days they had to work to be able to afford a house or car or to go back to school. It was extensive. In a nutshell, prostitution is quite often demonized to preserve power. See, powerful individuals and organizations fear both the hold a woman offering sex can have over a man and the loss of funds to a funner activity. So, in past societies, women who were shut out from direct power also worked harder to vilify those who gave away cheap what was due to large demand and control of resources, their bargaining and power tool. Where prostitution is and was allowed to come hither from the exile it was pushed into, it was often created a third pillar and competed directly with politics and religion for influence over society's direction. There must be another paragraph or topic that you might find down the line someday if you actually feel like reading about it, right? And see, it said this. Reality is today, this looks different. Objectification, violence, slavery, criminal acts, trafficking are the overarching issues with sex work in most of any society. Women and men who are viewed as a commodity, a good, to be used and to abused at will, right? The concept of ownership in humans and one of the great crimes against humanity permeates prostitution, and both the criminals and the victims of this crime operates in such a shunned and non-transparent societal layer that any attempt to change this is condemned to fail. Okay? These are the dark and vile pits of crime, and they often open up with from or through and along prostitution. They do, however, contribute little to the perception of prostitution and is by outsiders and lots of suffering of women and men caught up in it. All prostitution could be and has been not in this country particularly, but in societies past and present elsewhere. It's been legalized, unionized, and self-determined, and its bad reputation as well as attempts by many groups to ban it would still persist, right? So, long story short, the history of prostitution extends itself to from matters of ethical aspects to emotions to power to wealth, because see, back in the day, especially back in the day, people who visited prostitutes were aware of the people who were in the industry, which created personal connection with those who were the clientele and the sex worker. This created a stir of fear within the males, long story short, and it caused, let's say, a power shift, and it created a certain level of submission among men, which led to, how do you say, which led to an argument or acting against it, which caused, let's say, quite a lot of exploitation in terms of the industry itself. Plus, it caused a lot of conversation, stirring of topics at the same time, a lot of continuous debate till date. Okay, so the arguments are extensive, guys. Like, I'm just telling you, like, if you just go on YouTube or if you just go on any social media and type in about this, you'll find thousands and thousands of articles and debates and so many cases against these things and for these things. Thing is, and this is the best part, right? I love that today's world speaks about this with so much of intention, and interest, because figuring out what causes, within such an industry, figuring out what are the negative aspects of it. It allows you to pinpoint the root causes in how to, let's say, clean out the slate, if they choose to legalize it on a global scale, right? See, in my opinion, although I'm just saying though, I see it somewhat differently. Individuals have sex for a wide range of reasons: for fun and pleasure, to have children, to mark and deepen intimacy, right? To earn a living, or for the transactional purposes. It is wholly legitimate for adults to have sex for any, some or all of these reasons, which sometimes overlap. This is particularly striking, because, see, the some of them turn to sex work just as other turn to other badly paid forms of informal labor, domestic work, construction work, farm labor, and so on. All these livelihood options are based on using one or more parts of their body. We legally accept individuals using their heads and hands and other parts to earn a living, and must do so in the case of sex workers too. Okay. And I mean, there's a it's a contemplatable topic for me, because I'm quite in the middle of it, not sure whether I should go towards the for side or the against side. But I think with the further discussion that is to upcome, we can discuss whether it is right or wrong. So stay tuned, and this is Relax Radio.